The second trailer for Thor Love and Thunder came out yesterday, and with it we learned quite a lot about the movie, a lot of which is really interesting. Let's start by talking about the most obvious thing, and probably the most important, but also the most disappointing. Gorr the God Butcher is the main villain in the film, and whether you like how Christian Bale looks in the role, or you wish it looked more comic accurate and alien-like instead of humanoid like I do, the character is really interesting and has some sick connections in the comics. Like I mentioned yesterday, Gorr the God Butcher was born on a planet with no name. Almost every day on the brink of starvation. He was taught to trust in the gods, but they never answered his prayers. At an early age, his mother and father died, leaving Gorr to fend for himself in the harsh environment. Years later, he married and fathered some children. However, most of them died. Gorr's pregnant mate, Ara, was killed during an earthquake, and one by one, his remaining children perished until he was left with one son, Agar. When Agar was on the brink of death due to starvation, Gorr sought to ease his suffering and told his son they would soon reach a forest where they would never go hungry again. Stricken with grief after Agar's death, Gorr gave up hope and outwardly expressed his belief that there were no gods, for which he was exiled by a superstitious people. While wandering the desert praying to die, Gorr witnessed a pair of battling gods, a dark elder god called Knull, and a gold-armored, purple-skinned god empowered by the Enigma Force plunge out of the sky and crash land nearby. Shocked by the realization that gods did exist, Gorr was enraged when the gold-armored god begged for help. The dark god's sword then transformed into an amorphous mass of living darkness and bonded to him. Gorr then used his new weapon, All Black the Necrosword, to kill the gold-armored god. Then he vowed to seek vengeance against all gods for never answering his prayers and set out to kill them all. Gorr despised any god and traveled the cosmos for thousands of years to exact his revenge, embarking on a deicidal crusade in which he allegedly killed many gods. Now in the trailer, we did see Gorr picking up All Black the Necrosword, and in this scene, we see him walking through some tentacles which may or may not be some kind of symbiote. And I initially thought this would be where he found the Necrosword and maybe killed the gold-armored god, but I'm not entirely sure. This scene just seems really empty, like they show the rock or planet or whatever it is, and as far as I can tell, no one is on it and nothing really happens. But it could also be the same planet that we later see in other scenes where Thor and Valkyrie are fighting Gorr. However, as mentioned by some other people, this could actually be some kind of void planet where Gorr is more powerful and could have something to do with All Black the Necrosword or even Knull. As I stated, in the comics, Knull the god of the symbiotes fights the golden armored god and almost dies, which is how Gorr gets the sword and receives the powers which allow him to kill the gods. But I don't think that we're going to see Knull or any symbiotes in the film. Yes, a piece of the Venom symbiote was left behind in Spider-Man No Way Home, but I have no idea when or how Marvel will be able to use that. I assume that we'll see Peter get the black suit in Spider-Man 4, but I doubt that Sony will allow Marvel to use any of their other 9,000 Spider-Man related characters outside of a Spider-Man film. And so although Knull is a huge part of Gorr's origin and is such a cool character, I'll be very surprised if we actually see him in the film. At most, Gorr will probably just drop a line saying I killed Knull to get the sword, or I took it from him, or something along those lines. Which sucks, but it is what it is. In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if they introduced Knull as the big bad in Sony's universe in Venom 3 or 4, and then butchered him like all of their other characters. But anyways, we did see a lot of other interesting things in the trailer. I don't know where this is, if it's a temple in Olympus, or if it's where Jane gets her powers. But we know that Thor Love and Thunder has a very heavy focus on gods, and so what if Jane Foster gets some extra powers on top of Thor's by wielding Mjolnir? In Thor 1, Odin made it so that whoever was worthy of wielding Mjolnir would gain the powers of Thor, which is why in Endgame, when Cap wielded Mjolnir, he was also able to conjure lightning. But what if Foster also follows a different god and gains some extra powers on top of that? Like in this scene, you can clearly see that Jane doesn't just summon lightning, she's able to use some other kind of power. To me, it seems like Mjolnir came apart and all the broken pieces went flying, then came back like a boomerang. But I have heard some people saying that it could instead be ice, and so that again would tie back into Jane having slightly different powers. But anyways, that's not really important. What is this. We can not only see the Living Tribunal again for the third time on the top right, the first being in Loki episode 5, and the second in one of the alternate universes Doctor Strange traveled to in Multiverse of Madness, but we also see the Watcher next to him, Mistress Death, Eon, and possibly even Infinity on the left. And I mean, this is just mind-blowing, because Thor Ragnarok also set up a bunch of crazy things. If you remember in Thor Ragnarok, we saw a ton of previous champions on the Grandmaster's Tower who haven't been introduced into the MCU yet, but will probably be soon. We saw Ares, who's Zeus' son, and may even appear in Thor 4. We saw Man-Thing, who's heavily rumored to be appearing in the Werewolf by Night Halloween special this October, as well as starring in his own Halloween special next year. We saw Beta Ray Bill, who could possibly also appear in Thor 4, or even in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, or Volume 3. We also saw Night, or Darkcrawler, and we also know that the cosmic side of the MCU is going to start being explored in more depth soon. so it makes sense for the Watcher and all of these characters to be teased. We also saw this scene in both trailers, which is taken directly from the comics and is how Thor learns that someone is killing gods. This is Falliger the Behemoth, and in the comics, he was a friend of Thor and was one of the first to fall to Gore. But that's everything that I was able to find in the trailer. Let me know if you saw anything that I missed, and how excited are you for Thor Love and Thunder. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you will never miss another video. Thanks for watching, and remember to wash your hands and stay safe.